Okay, alright, here we go. Pause, hit play. So this is going to be the moment where the Lionhead gets halted off at the gas station. Bastion and I are still on top, and I'm going to stay with the Bastion. Because again, my whole doctrine is, I go where Bastion goes. So when I see him move, I move. Now, it looked like he missed a jump and jumped off accidentally, but it doesn't matter. I'm gonna go with him on the ground floor. Personally, I'd rather he stay on the top floor where it's safer, but I can't argue with him. And for the most part, I simply just get surrounded on all sides and killed as a matter of time. Now we're gonna go back to the Bastion's point of view, because we're gonna see things from his point of view. And this is going to go back to the whole point of knowing when to switch between recon and sentry mode. Bastion sees that the enemy is out of his line of sight, and he's going to reposition to meet the enemy. That's what I like about him. He's moving with the enemy. With that said, this team fight's over. Even though the enemy does have a numerical advantage over us, 5 over 4, they have 5 alive, we have 4 alive. And they could probably take this team fight to actually realize that and push in. We got people who are overextended, fragmented, and overall just disorganized. So the enemy can actually beat us right here. But they don't realize that, thankfully. And again, it goes back to the whole concept of not losing the team fight being the more important factor. Hit play. Go back to my point of view. So I'm looking for the Bastion right now. If that happens, I'm going to try to hold the front line. And this is, as a whole, just a team initiative right here. So, as a whole, the only reason why I took that charge on the top right was because I saw my team make a push themselves. Pause.
You are advised to move behind my barrier.
And again, to reiterate, because this is important, my whole game plan was, again, play around the Bastion. I don't see him, I don't know where he's at, and the enemy isn't giving me time to figure all that out. That's gonna happen. When it does, you're gonna resort to your rather basic, ideal, expected job. Or job that's expected from you, which is hold the front line. Which is what I'm gonna do here.
I need to recharge.
So, I use Supercharger. Oops, sorry, I'm gonna pause. I use Supercharger to counteract the Supercharger. That's why I do it. Pause. So, the Reinhardt and the Torbjorn both take initiative, charge the enemy front line, which I love, actually. And it's because of that is why I'm going to take the top right high ground as well. That idea and concept being that when a teammate of yours goes in for a play, you back them up. Doesn't matter who it is. And the reason you back it up, it's more about increasing your chances of success here. There was a rather, I'm not sure if I could call him famous, but a while back there was a lot of talk about a middle school football coach. Or was he high school? Either way though, he looked at the game of football, American football, for those who are not American. For American football, the common idea for when we play is when you get to the third down, you decide to kick the ball into the enemy territory. so that when they get the ball, more they have more field to cover, right? I'm not sure if that would make sense when I describe it verbally, but basically, the school of thought is when it's almost your turn to give the ball over to the opponent for them to get a shot at it, you kick the ball into the enemy territory as far down as you can so that they have to cover more space. Well, this coach that I'm kind of referring to thinks along the lines that instead of doing that and giving the enemy the automatic ball on the third down, there's still the fourth down that you have before the game automatically forces you to give you the opponent the ball. So what he does is that on the fourth down, he keeps running a play like normal, which does indeed increase his chances of successfully scoring a touchdown that can eventually lead to a win, right? And that's just one convoluted allegory of saying when you see your opponent when you see your teammate make a play, you want to crash in with them. You want to fall like a thunderbolt. You want to hit fast and you want to hit hard, right? So that's why I go in with them. Even though I see them die, I still gotta finish their play. But that's why I get this. And I gotta keep going with that play. Right? So, as a whole, the bloodshed was about half and half. We lost about 3 guys. They lost about 3 guys. Half and half, right? But, again, we didn't lose the team fight, which is more important. So now, we're going to go over to the Torbjorn, who we've been kind of ignoring for the most part. And this little bastard is rather ingenious for a lot of things he does. He takes rather bald charges into the enemy front line. And what that does, yes, he's overextended, but it plays the important factor of if you're going to come down into my territory, you got to run into me first, unimpeded. And the more important part is that he's able to get back alive, which is a very valuable skill to have. And you can actually pull off this maneuver regardless of your character or your role. I've done it a lot with support, as well as DPS and tanks. And from the support side of things, I'm going to go back. From the support side of things, it's important that you recognize that kind of play. He bounces, healing and damage. Great job, Mora. Alright, so Torbjorn goes in for a play. She saw that, checks the sides, and doesn't ignore him. That's great. Oh, see how she gets out? And she fades out. Pretty basic. Now we're gonna go back to Torbjorn, because he's gonna set up this next play. Now this guy's been flanking all game. Gonna pause. Alright, and now I'm gonna go back to kind of break it down why that worked. And why it feeds into the whole Bastion composition. So, at this point in the game mode, me and Bastion just died. Torbjorn just kind of took his initial dove into the front line to kind of push him off just a little bit. And what this Torbjorn does throughout the entirety of this round is he's always been setting up his turrets along this ridge right here, and what that turret does is it creates a crossfire. If you remember earlier in the video when I went about my turn for attack, what killed me was the fact that the enemy had a crossfire set up as well. I got enemies in front of me, top right and top left, and behind me. So it didn't really matter where I was positioned, I was going to die anyway, which is a spot I don't like to put myself in most cases. But if I'm in a position where I have to be in that spot, then the enemy outplayed me, they outmaneuvered me. And so this is what it's going to look like when we do the exact same thing to them. And you can see the Reaper trying to make a play as well. Enemy Reaper making a play. So, the enemy tries to initiate a fight from the front line to our front line. And it's kind of hard for me to kind of describe this next part in a way that would make sense in English, because I'm going to have to describe it rather poetically, so bear with me here. But
Cease your resistance. Payload is approaching.
of their time trying to kill that Bastion, right? And it was a huge waste of time. They were used to fighting that Bastion in a direct head-to-head or in a indirect flank attack. They were used to facing that Bastion all together. So when he's in the front like that way, they know that they don't have to worry about that Bastion being on their sides. Which is why it's important. It's important that you have somebody else being able to initiate that flank. And what makes this flank work so damn well is that we got the attention of the entire enemy team on our front line. So instead of the enemy looking at their right side behind them, checking their corners, which is something you gotta be doing, always check your corners. The enemy forgot to check their corners and they let Torbjorn get through. And this is the guy who's been frontlining the entire time, by the way. If you didn't pay attention through the various point of views I've shown, Torbjorn was always in the front line engaging the enemy most of the time, the first time out. So let's continue. Well, the next point of view I want to check it out from is going to be, well, there's a lot of interesting point of views I want to show you guys, but I'm running just too much time. So I'll make it quick.
It's not over yet.
So I'm gonna go back. And we go. Sorry,
Moving
pause.
the payload to the destination.
Sorry about this, such an abrupt change. So we're gonna look at this from the Orisa point of view, enemy Orisa point of view.
Enemy turret located.
So got her attention on the front line.
Cease your resistance.
Boom. So she had no idea she got blindsided and doesn't know where from, which is a damn good flank when that happens. You know you got the enemy good when you know they didn't know where he came from. So the next part, if you look at the kill feed, we see Risa die, then we saw the Sigma die, right? So let's go check out what killed Sigma. Pause it, let the character models load in, and press play.
Heroes never die.
Special attack.
Okay, pause. Alright, so we saw what killed him. It was a poor shield placement. When he launched his shield up, it was just high enough off the ground for Reinhardt's Earthshatter to go through, and he pretty much just got lit the hell up from Reinhardt and Torbjorn. So the two frontline tanks on the... So let's go back to the next person, which is Baptiste. So we're gonna go back about 20 seconds. Watch him come back from spawn.
Over yet.
Heroes never die.
Payloads to the destination. Team up for special attack.
So even the Baptiste is caught off guard. Doesn't really have enough time to save those tanks. That's where I came in with my flank. And again, from my point of view, is pause. And again, from my point of view, the reason why I went up to even do that flank was just to continue the play that my teammate made. That's all I did. So we're gonna go back. And we're gonna watch it from the Junkrat's point of view.
Heroes never die.
Team up for special attack.
Checks his corner really quick. He's fine. Alright, gets killed. Boom. I'm gonna pause? Alright, so as we saw from the support, Baptiste, the two tanks, and Junkrats, we literally killed about 2/3 of their whole team. Yeah, we killed 2/3 of their whole team. And you saw how quick that was, right? And the common characteristics behind that is one, they were unprepared. The reason they were unprepared was just from a lack of discipline, the lack of sloppy, or not a lack. They were sloppy. They didn't really bother to check their corners, and they just blindly walked into the fights. So they were, for the lack of a better term, because I can't find one in English, the enemy was already defeated because they didn't really have that discipline to always check their corners. They didn't have the discipline to be aware. So they did half the fighting for me, which was being unprepared. I was prepared, and I was able to get those 2 kills on Junkrat and Baptiste. And we saw how fast they died relatively, right? Well, that's the important part of being... Well, that's the importance of hitting hard and hitting fast. You gotta do both at the exact same time so that you catch them off guard. And this idea kind of stems from martial arts. In particular, let's say Jiu-Jitsu, for example. I'm gonna go back to my point of view. And the reason why I use Jiu-Jitsu specifically is
I still have a job to do.
well, I'm gonna kind of go on a little bit tangent here, so bear with me. I'll make it quick. So the way Jiu-Jitsu was developed was being able to fight heavier armed opponents, because this was a fighting style meant to be used by armored samurai fighting other armored samurai who are wearing, I wouldn't say heavy equipment, but they were heavy considering that you have their equipment and gear as well as their body weight. So people under 200, 300 body weight range. 200 pounds. I wouldn't know what their kilograms are, because, you know, I'm American. Anyway.
Group up with me.
So the key thing in Jiu-Jitsu is that it's really rare.
Behind my barrier.
It's really rare to actually throw someone who is fully resisting you in one move. It's really hard to throw someone and take them down when they're expecting you, right? So a lot of the times you actually got to do something else to throw off their guard, to throw off their awareness, to do something that they're not expecting. So sometimes I gotta pretend I'm attacking from the front, hit them with the surprise attack from the left side. And you'll see it. This is me attacking from the front line. And when they're expecting to be hit from the front line, they're caught off guard from their left side. So that throws them off balance really quick. They didn't get at this point in time, we did not get a kill, right? All we did was we kind of tripped them up a little bit. And so in that short amount of time that we got them tripped up, that's when we got to act hard and we got to act fast. We want to take care of them before they recover from that initial shock from the flank of Torbjorn. So I'm going to pause. I'm going to slow it down a lot now to kind of give you an idea of how things worked. So, I'm able to kill Baptiste before he notices anything. Mora helps out a lot. Then I go after Junkrats. Now, it's a rather quick succession of kills, but I do want to point out how close they came to killing me both, actually. Because it leaves me with very little health to take on this Reaper next, actually. Because I also got more burst shoot at me, and I didn't see that. Now, they kind of like finalize this whole part of throwing your opponent off balance to then actually throw them to the ground. We're gonna look at this whole thing from the air. And the one thing I'm gonna pause. Characters model load in, there we go. And the one thing I want you to kind of pay attention as a whole is pay attention to how fast we act, and then pay attention to the reaction of the enemy.
Cease your resistance. Cease your resistance.
Alright, so at this point in time, we were able to kill 2 of their tanks at about the same time they killed 2 of us, right? So it's about half and half. We lost 2 people each. Again, this is the importance of follow-up and follow-through. So while they're still recovering from them killing our Mercy and our Reinhardt, I'm already making the play before the enemy finish their play. Right? So I go in, kill Baptiste and Junkrat. Then Mercy Reaper go in.
Die, die, die.
60 seconds remaining.
Mercy gets away, but that's fine, right? And yeah, that's it for that part. There's still more, unfortunately, and I would appreciate it if you bear with me throughout the entirety of the video, so you can kind of get the point of how to play with the Bastion comp and how to play against. Because this is the part where Bastion becomes relevant, once again. So, high ground, so I go with him. And paying attention to the charlottes of your allies is important. So at this point, I'm timing my movements with Bastion. I see him go down, so I go down with him. Gonna pause.
Get behind the barrier.
So, with his front secured, more importantly, I got his doorway cleared so that in case they try to do something sneaky, like jump out and try to jump shot him, that's covered. So I'm going to move to this little opening gap right here so that he doesn't get caught off guard by anything. I don't know what they can throw at me, but I want to make sure that it's not going to hit the Bastion. So I'm going to be there. And by the time I get back, man, like, half the enemy team is already killed. So my shield breaks. I'm gonna body block for the Bastion and jump in front of him. Let the shield come back down. Yeah. And for the most part, Bastion and I didn't have to do a whole lot of work.
10 seconds remaining.
I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna go back. And we just saw what I did for Bastion, which was again cover his sides. Make sure that he's not distracted and he can focus on the front line. So go back. And this is the moment where he died.
60 seconds remaining.
So for the most part, Bastion's taking charge, and I just follow him up. That's all I'm doing. And 2,
30
pause.
seconds remaining.
When you are the person supporting another teammate, and this topic goes beyond just a tank backing up Bastion. It's about just being a good teammate in general. Because I'm on point with Bastion, because I'm following his lead and I'm keeping up with him. And it's also helpful that I play Bastion myself and I know what to expect out of my teammate and what I can do for that teammate. It's very important that I'm able to read his moves, read his plays, get his thought process down, and be able to predict what he's going to do next. And cover his weaknesses as well. Because I really want to highlight this point right here. Bastion doesn't even know I'm behind him at all. All he knows for sure is that he's up here by himself. He jumps down, and then just not even 2 seconds later, boom, there's already a shield in front of him. Because I'm on point with him, I synchronize my movements with him. So he doesn't have to worry about a whole lot.
30 seconds.
Shield breaks, I jump in front of him. When his shield comes back up, I get behind him so I don't block his line of sight anymore. And then the Bastion doesn't even know I'm trying to cover his sides. I'm literally right behind him so that no one shoots his weak spot, the blue light. That's his critical spot, by the way. I'm guarding that. And then, what we saw from the Bastion's point of view, I'm gonna go back. Right here. Pause right here. Again, covering his sides.
30 seconds remaining.
I'm intentionally covering the gap that my shield has between Bastion and the cover right here. I'm intentionally guarding that so that he doesn't get hooked. And while that's happening, he gets the pocket for Mercy. So back to Bastion's point of view. And Bastion doesn't even know I'm there. Again, he doesn't know I'm by his side. So as soon as that shield breaks and I jump in front of him, I then get a pocket from the Mercy because Mercy's able to read the play that we gotta keep Bastion safe. She knows how to juggle between targets and prioritize them. This is what makes a damn good support. Meanwhile, the other support player is, again, she's on the front line. She's literally trying to keep them in bay. A lot of people would criticize this mortar for going DPS, but at this point in time, we kind of got nobody out at the moment because I'm already back here. Half the team's back here. So somebody's got to take the front line. And I'm glad Mora steps up. And it's also helpful that the Torbjorn sets up not a kill box, which is what this is right here. But he sets up a crossfire right here. As in, we got multiple avenues of fire coming in at the enemy. And what makes this beautiful is that the enemy walks into it. They walked into the situation that led me to die when it was my turn to attack. So we literally did to them what they did to us, but we did it more efficiently. Now, I do want to talk about a support taking the DPS position. When should you do it? Why and how? Well, it's one of those things where if you're literally the last person right here on the front line, you might as well fight, because in all likelihood you're gonna die being by yourself on the front line. There's no one to heal, and if you are unsure of how far away your allies are, and more importantly, if you can't make it back to them safely, you might as well go down swinging. There's no point in trying to make the miracle last minute run to run to safety. You have more success and more value to the team going down fighting, so that you can actually help the people on your team get a kill, which is what Mora is doing right here. Support. So that's one of the few times when you should actually actively fight when you are support, is if there's no one else to fight. As a result, if you are that person on that front line by circumstance, and you should only be on the front line by circumstance, by the way, you shouldn't actively seek to engage the targets like this right here, because for one, Mora has a low damage output. The only people she's going to be killing are people who can't aim their guns. So keep that in mind, alright? Secondly, for anyone else who sees their support on the front line, put as much fire downrange as you can and keep the target suppressed, so that the enemy has more than one person to worry about. And that's what makes the support players so damn amazing, is that they're able to prioritize what's going on with the situation and actually make plays accordingly, and they know how to step up and fulfill those positions. Because when we go back to Bastion, as soon as I leave, pocket goes back to Bastion. Pause. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the Torbjorn. And the point that we go back to is going to be right here, yeah. This is when he did his Molten Core, and we don't lose the team fight.
I have big plans for you. If you want something done right, you're gonna do
60 seconds remaining.
So, one of the things I like about this Torbjorn is that he's proactively setting himself up for success. As in, once something is over, he's gonna do the things that's gonna enable him to win the next fight. In this case, he sets up a turret. And it's not an ideal situation, but it's all he has to work with, and he's gonna go with it. And that's a good tactic or a good habit to learn, is that if something's not going to work, you don't want to be committed to that attack if it's no longer going to work. You have to be willing to give up what you're doing and go for something that's entirely. So back to his point of view. He's a damn good player in general right here. And this is a topic I want to kind of briefly point out for the DPS out there. So, hold on. Right here.
Look at you.
So from this point of view, we see that he's on this ridge alone for the most part. It's hard to say who's with him. And so, for the sake of argument, let's say he knows for his fact that he's up there by himself and he's not going to get any support from the team. Just because of where he's at right there compared to everyone else. So he's more or less staring down the majority of the enemy right here. And he doesn't back away from it. And that's important because when you have somebody losing superior positioning because they're going to get overwhelmed, that's going to eventually lead to defeat over you. So, now, because the Torbjorn can't really get a kill per se, the best thing he can opt for is be in a position that's advantageous over the enemy. And it's a very convoluted way of me saying, yeah, he has the high ground. It's more about the fact that for Torbjorn's specific situation, it's important that he has some type of natural terrain covering him. In this case, if we were to look at the enemy's point of view, we can see Torbjorn's small stature kind of being hard to hit. You can only really hit his head from this position, right? He also has the canyon walls to his left and right, and if he crouches down, the literal ground will act as cover. So Torbjorn has a good position over the majority of the enemy right here. The only one he can really match him is a Soldier 76 right here. And what we see is the concept of a DPS operating and executed within that window of opportunity. And what I mean by that, well, it's one of those things where if you can't even get a kill, try to at least hold your superior position over the enemy, right? That's what I'm trying to get at, because it's really tough to get a kill in that situation. And this is what's going to really separate the good DPS from the bad ones, or mediocre ones.
I'm overloading.
When the Soldier 76 initiates a fight with the Torbjorn, Torbjorn can either back out and give him the high ground, which then, he can shoot over us, over my shields, he can continue to do a fake down this pathway. Anything can happen, right? And it's hard for me to make any educated guess because of the lack of information I have. But for the most part, when this happens and you are in a position where you have to fight, you're going to have to fight. When that happens, it's important that you execute and you deliver results. So, I'm going to pause.
30 seconds remaining.
That one crucial fight is important because it sets up victory for us, actually. So, by Torbjorn winning that one-on-one fight with the Soldier, and it's a very crucial fight, actually, that wins us the game, believe it or not. I think that the most important fight would happen right there. And as a DPS players, or any DPS players out there listening, this is one of those things where I gotta tell you, if you had messed up on that kill, it would have been your fault. And the reason why we lost, because you couldn't deliver results on that kill. Because if you look at it from Soldier's point of view, he gets back from spawn and runs up. Runs in, gets some good positioning. Now he's going to engage a Torbjorn right here. He's initiating the fight. And he just fails to get the kill. That's all it was. Yes, he did engage the Torbjorn in unfavorable circumstances because he's being shot up by me, probably the Bastion too. So 3 people already shooting at him. But Soldier 76 had no choice but to take that fight from the way things were going. and he just couldn't execute and succeed in that fight, unfortunately for his team. It's moments like that where DPS really gotta shine. And it's important that you actually hit the practice range or any other training simulation you guys got and just work on your aim, work on your skills. Because Torbjorn
Beauty.
sets up this next turret and he makes very easy work. He dies, but his Torbjorn finishes off his kills. And it's those 2 kills that win us the game. Now I'm gonna pause. And what we're gonna do is... Ooh, that was loud. That was loud. So, go back. Here it is. So, Baptiste just came back from spawn. He gets cut off in his tanks. Can't help him out because he got cut off, which is what we want. Good. Does a kill Bastion. So kills a Torbjorn, but he dies. Pause. I'm gonna go to the Roadhog. Go back. So at this moment, he comes back from spawn, and so Baptiste should be right behind him by a couple of feet. Trying to put a hook, can't get it. Yeah. Whew, alright. And with that death of Roadhog, our victory is pretty much secured because there's nothing else on the enemy team that can actually kill the Bastion, which is our win condition. And what makes Bastion the win condition is just more of the fact that he just exists in the game, really. The threat of him existing is a damn good deterrent from the enemy trying to hop on the payload, right? Listen, or I guess I should let the game play out real quick.
10 seconds.
Helden sterben nicht.
Bitte die Fersen sind vorbei!
Sorry, I'm gonna go back because I messed up the shot. My bad. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna try to get everyone in frame here.
10 seconds.
Helden sterben nicht.
Bitte die Fersen sind vorbei!
Yeah, pause.
Victory.
Alright. So that was a very, very long thing to dissect.
30 seconds.
And it was only the last 5 minutes of the game, by the way, or the last 8 minutes. And so to kind of summarize things, right? What makes Bastion our win condition specifically is that I plan my whole attack on getting the payload as far as we can, so that the enemy has to push it that far when it's our turn to defend. So basically, I'm looking to win the game when it's our turn to defend. I'm not trying to win it on my turn to attack, because realistically, we had 1 minute to work with. Anything could have happened in that 1 minute, and so I needed a strategy that's the most flexible and the easiest to pull off, which was just push it as far as we can. Push the payload as far as we can. With that said, I never bothered to fight the Bastion at all. My team didn't really bother to fight the Bastion at all. Now, when it was our turn to defend, the enemy made it a point to constantly kill the Bastion, and so they neglected the payload. And that's what... I'm not going to say I planned that out, because I didn't know. All I knew was I had to run down the clock. And thankfully, with this guy going Bastion, the enemy just forgot about the payload. And with him just existing, their whole game plan was revolving around kill the Bastion and we automatically win. That's my assumption, if I have to make a guess at what their playbook was. Huh, that's a nice effect. But, yeah. The other part is. The other part I want to summarize is that when you play with the Bastion, again, you gotta understand what his strengths and weaknesses are. And his strengths are his line of sight. But he's kind of useless if the enemy plays behind cover, so he would have to reposition. That's his biggest weakness, is that when he stopped firing, or not, that doesn't sound right in English. Let me rephrase that. Forgive me. His biggest weakness is when he has to reposition. When a target moves, that's when it's the easiest for them to be killed. Alternatively, his other weakness is, well, there's not really other weaknesses, I should say. It's more about the skill of the Bastion player themselves. They gotta know when to reposition, and they also gotta know how to set up and when to attack. Conversely, Bastion is only one player. It's up to the remaining 5 players on the whole team to make him work, to set him up so that he gets success. A lot of times, I see people run a Bastion comp on my team, and they'll literally just chase the enemy behind cover, so they completely negate the existence of Bastion. And so at that point, Bastion might as well switch, right? Well, he's not going to switch for, well, I'm going into semantics and just hypotheticals, and I shouldn't because I'm not too good with those. Anything can be said in those hypothetical situations, but objectively, what I can say is that when you play a Bastion, when you play with the Bastion on your team and you constantly chase kills behind a wall away from your Bastion, you're chipping him up. You're setting him up to fail. It's like you're stepping on his toes. Instead, try to bring the fight out into the open so that he can obliterate them. At the same time, cover his weaknesses of making sure his sides are secure and nothing's going to distract him. With that said, that's all I gotta say for the situation for now. So until then, see ya.